There are places in America where the past never quite fades, where the land itself seems to remember the horrors that once unfolded there. Imagine traveling through the untamed Kansas prairie in the 1870s, exhausted from the road, and stumbling upon a small, family-run inn promising food, shelter, and warmth. You accept, relieved, unaware that by morning you will be buried in a shallow grave behind the house. And decades later, in the quiet hills of West Virginia, a grieving mother claims her murdered daughter is speaking to her from beyond the grave, demanding justice. Tonight, we explore two of the most chilling and baffling cases in American history. The Bloody Benders, a family of serial killers who vanished without a trace, and the case of Zona Heaster Shue, a woman who returned from the afterlife to convict her murderer. In the years following the Civil War, Kansas was still wild, a place where outlaws roamed freely and settlers disappeared without a trace, along a lonely trail known as the Osage Trail, which was frequently used by travelers heading west. A small family of four, John Bender, his wife Elvira, their son John Jr., and daughter Kate, built a simple one-room cabin that served as both their home and a makeshift inn for weary travelers. From the outside, the Benders appeared to be an ordinary pioneer family. John Sr. was a hulking, silent man who barely spoke English. His wife Elvira was rumored to be a mean-spirited woman with a sharp tongue. Their son, John Jr., was a lanky, awkward man who often laughed inappropriately, while Kate, young and beautiful, claimed to have psychic abilities and advertised herself as a healer. But this was all a facade. The Benders weren't just homesteaders. They were cold-blooded killers. The trap. The setup was simple. Travelers passing through the area were welcomed inside the inn-bender's home, where a large canvas sheet divided the room. They were given food, offered a seat at the table, and encouraged to stay the night. Kate, charming and friendly, would distract them while John Sr. or Jr. positioned themselves behind the guest, just on the other side of the dividing sheet. Then, without warning, the guest's skull was crushed with a hammer from behind. Before they could even react, their throat was slashed, ensuring they never made a sound. Their body was then dragged through a trapdoor beneath the table and into a basement, where they were stripped of their belongings before being buried in a mass grave behind the house. For years, the Benders operated undetected. Travelers would vanish, but in a land as lawless as Kansas, disappearances were common. It wasn't until a well-known doctor, William York, disappeared in 1873 that suspicions arose. York had informed his family of his travel plans, and, when he never returned, his powerful brothers, including a Kansas senator, began investigating. When the Benders were questioned, they claimed to know nothing, but something about their demeanor was unsettling. As rumors spread, other locals became wary, and a search party formed. By the time authorities arrived at the Bender homestead, the family was gone. Inside the cabin, they found a horrific sight: bloodstains soaking through the floorboards, the infamous trapdoor leading to a blood-slicked basement. Behind the house, they discovered mass graves, the remains of at least a dozen victims, though some believed the true number could be much higher. The Benders had vanished, leaving behind no trace of where they had gone. Despite extensive manhunts and wild theories, some claimed they were executed by vigilantes, others that they had fled to different parts of the country. Their fate remains one of America's greatest unsolved mysteries. To this day, the land where the Bender cabin once stood is considered cursed, Locals claim to hear whispers in the wind, feel unseen eyes watching them, and see shadowy figures in the distance. The benders may be long gone, but the horrors they left behind still linger. In the winter of 1897, in Greenbrier County, West Virginia, a woman named Zona Heaster Shue was found dead in her home. At just 23 years old, Zona's death came as a shock to the small, tight-knit community. Her husband, Erasmus Trout Shue, claimed he had come home from work to find her lifeless body at the bottom of the stairs. He wept, insisting it was a tragic accident. The local doctor, arriving hours later, found Trout already cradling Zona's head, refusing to let anyone get near her. When the doctor attempted an examination, Trout erupted in grief, insisting that his wife had simply died of a weak heart. His behavior was strange, but without clear evidence of foul play, Zona's death was ruled an accident, and she was quickly buried. That should have been the end of it, but the case was far from over. The ghostly visit. Zona's mother, Mary Jane Heaster, never believed the story. She was convinced that Trout had murdered her daughter. Then, according to her, something strange happened. Zona came back. Mary Jane claimed that over 4 nights, Zona's ghost appeared to her, revealing that Trout had strangled her in a fit of rage, snapping her neck. The ghost even described how it happened, demonstrating how her neck had been broken. Disturbed by these visions, Mary Jane demanded that authorities exhume Zona's body. Perhaps most shockingly, when the autopsy was performed, it confirmed everything the ghost had allegedly said. Zona's neck had been fractured, her windpipe crushed. Justice from the grave. With this new evidence, Trout Shue was arrested. As investigators dug deeper, they learned that he had been married twice before. His first wife had left him, accusing him of abuse, and his second wife had died under mysterious circumstances. It was clear Trout Shue was a dangerous man. At his trial, Mary Jane's testimony about the ghostly visitation was even admitted as evidence, an unprecedented moment in legal history. Despite his protests, Trout was found guilty and sentenced to life in prison, where he died a few years later. Zona's case remains one of the most bizarre murder investigations ever recorded. A rare moment where the testimony of a spirit seemingly brought a killer to justice. The bloody benders and Zona Heaster Shue's murder could not be more different. One case is a story of a family of ruthless killers who disappeared without a trace, while the other is a tale of supernatural justice. But they both remind us of something chilling, that the past does not stay buried. Evil can lurk in the most unexpected places. A simple inn on the Kansas plains, or a quiet home in West Virginia. And sometimes, just sometimes, the dead refuse to rest until their stories are told. If you enjoyed this deep dive into America's forgotten crimes, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell, because there are plenty more tales just waiting to be uncovered. Until next time, stay safe.